A freighter carrying a crew of 29 disappeared on Lake Superior during a severe storm last night, and so far, no survivors have been found. The freighter, the Edmund Fitzgerald, was transporting iron ore when it ran into high winds and 25-foot wave.
The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitchigumi. The lake, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy. God is with us, even in the worst times. I was born in Duluth, Minnesota. We moved when I was quite young, but I've always felt a strong connection to Lake Superior. And I've always been awed by the way that lake could be both healing and violent. It's definitely not a place for the faint-hearted when those gales of November keep going. And that was, of course, those are the opening words from Gordon Lightfoot's The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I was about 6 when the Fitzgeralds wrecked, and I remember that song from a very early age just haunting me. I've always been fascinated with Great Lakes shipwrecks, just in awe of the power of that lake. There's a particular line, though, in Gordon Lightfoot's song, and it kind of comes after an instrumental passage, and it's a little bit reflective, and it's the thing that I find the most haunting. Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours? And it goes on to say that the searchers all say they'd have made Whitefish Bay if they'd put 15 more miles behind her. Seems to me like there's an implicit why. Why couldn't they have made those 15 more miles? And if we believe in a loving God, how do things like this happen? I can't imagine the terror of this good ship and crew in their final moments on earth. So where's God? I have sat with so many people at the end of their lives doing hospice work, from children to adults, to very old adults. I've been with grieving families when they've lost someone to disease, or even when they've lost someone due to trauma. And often doing hospice work in particular, I was asked how I could believe in God when I see so many awful things. Where is the love of God when our gales of November come early? When we walk through our valleys of the shadow of death? Where is God? It's a valid question. And you know what? It's even okay sometimes to be angry with God. And if that's a question that has caused you to turn away from God, I understand and accept that completely. But the love of God is still there. When I've been with people that were suffering, I have often felt amidst all the ugliness and all of the pain and the suffering, I have often felt a presence. And I know that the people I've been with have said they felt something very similar. I've also seen when people in hospice, when people are dying, the way their community comes to surround them, to support them, the way my fellow coworkers would, the nurses, the social workers, the physicians, the chaplains. I see the love of God. I would see the love of God through the care of others all the time. The Arthur Anderson wasn't too far behind Edmund Fitzgerald, and in fact was the last ship to talk to them, the last human beings to talk to them before the lights disappeared and the Fitzgerald was gone. But even in these stormy waters, helicopters, other boats came out to the rescue. And there's some power to love there. Sometimes I struggle myself. If we have a loving God, why do things happen? Why do ships sink? Why do bridges collapse? Why do people fly airplanes into buildings? Why? Why do kids get cancer? But I realized long ago that I don't understand these things. One theologian in writing in the book of Job, and I'm forgetting the name offhand, talked about God did not create a vegetarian world. In other words, God created a world where a lot of things could happen. And a lot of things do happen. You know, a long time ago, I heard my dad once say to someone, my dad was a pastor who was angry and said, I don't believe in God. And my dad said, tell me the God you don't believe in, and I'll bet I don't believe in that God either. I don't believe in a God who gives kids cancer. I don't believe in a God who took my sister at a young age. I don't believe in a God who sits like some master decider deciding whose fate is he going to affect today. Who lives, who dies? Does God pick that out? You know, even during the pandemic, a lot of people said, well, God's just going to choose who lives and dies. No, we have a choice. God gives us a choice. God gave us a choice to make sure that we were doing our part to protect our neighbors. God doesn't build ships. God didn't weld the seams. God didn't secure the hatch covers. And I understand there's some pain on the families about whether or not a hatchway gave in and that it indicates it could have been negligence. I don't believe any of that, but I believe that a ship under stress, things are going to fall apart. God didn't make the decision to be there with 26,000 tons of ore. And God didn't forecast the weather. God didn't put the crew of that ship in danger. God didn't build the 35W bridge here in the Twin Cities, the one that fell years ago. God doesn't do those things. Those are human choices, and God gives us free will to make choices. And we have a choice. We can act out of anger. We can act out of not having care for our fellow human being. Or we can rush to help. I always come back to Fred Rogers talking about when he was a boy and he saw something troubling and he talked to his mother and she said, whenever I see troubling things, I look for the helpers. Because in the helpers is God. And as I've said before, if God is even just that love that's within each one of us, that's enough for me. God takes the form of many people in our own lives. And we are all going to face our storms. And we're all going to face our times sometimes when we wonder, is this just going to be too much? But I believe to my core that we are loved. And that we live in a world where so many amazing things can happen. But that also leaves room for bad things to happen. So where does the love of God go when the waves turn the minutes to hours? Where does God go when the last few breaths turn the minutes to hours? Where does the love of God go when we sit in our grief and it feels like we're going to be there forever? God is there. I have felt it. I have seen it. I have walked into rooms where there was chaos and everybody was upset, and the hospice patient may be very agitated and near death, and the family is distraught, and people are arguing, and everything is just ugly and not beautiful. That's for sure. But there are ways that beauty can enter into those situations. I have seen the love of God in more ways than I can express. As this airs, tomorrow will be the anniversary, the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald. May we hold the families of the 29 crew who died in our hearts. They will be gathering, as they have every single year, for their own private memorial service, in addition to public memorials that'll happen from everywhere from Split Rock Lighthouse to the UP of Michigan. May we hold those families in our hearts. May we be grateful to all of the people who work hard, sometimes even putting their lives in danger, just so we can live the lives that we live. May we remember that. And may we always feel that love, even when it feels far away. Because I believe in love. I believe in God, even when God seems silent. I love you all. Keep working and moving toward beauty in your lives and justice for all people, because we are all frail beings on our own journey, and sometimes the waters get rough. Peace be with you. Walk in beauty.